Welcome, good morning, and welcome to Sunday morning meditation. If you're joining me now live, it is a pleasure to have you with me. If you're watching this later at whatever time, I'm so happy that you're taking time for yourself. Time for reflection, time for self-care. Today's topic is finding courage and embracing change. And that change could be on many levels. It could be a change in our perception of ourselves, of the world. It could be a change in employment or in education, a change in relationship. There is something about the interplay of fear and courage that invites us into a practice of growth, of development. Often it is very, very easy to stay in patterns that are dysfunctional, that don't support us. Whether, again, it's in the way we view ourselves in the world or in the relationship we choose to be with, or in the job that we have been doing and supports us financially. And while we know at some deep place in our gut that something is off, that something is wrong, it is sometimes easier to stay with what is familiar. We're in a way wired for this. Perhaps the most extreme example is how children that were abused in their early childhood often choose as adults abusive partners and may often become themselves abusive parents. Something about how the brain gets wired from these experiences and then chooses again and again what is familiar over what is nourishing and healthy. So how do we do this? How do we first take an honest look at patterns that are unhealthy, then recognize our fear of change? I often see it in my work. People come truly wishing for things to be different and are hindered by these patterns that are just simply so familiar that they become a kind of comfort despite their dysfunctionality. So I'd like us today together to explore this topic of finding courage. It's a difficult word for my Israeli brain to say. Finding courage and embracing change. So courage is not the absence of fear. Fearlessness, I'm not sure that that's something that I endorse wholeheartedly. Fear has a place in our life, but courage is the ability to transform fear into positive action, whether it's actual activity or something that takes place in our inner mind. I invite you to find a comfortable position. Perhaps seated or lying down, whatever is most comfortable for you, where you can let the body relax and yet the mind remains open, the heart expanding and receiving. Soon the bell will sound. And I invite you to gently close the eyes or perhaps lower the gaze to a spot on the floor in front of you, if that's more comfortable. Let's take a deep breath in on a count of 4, a short hold, and then a long exhale. Perhaps to count of 4 or to count of 6. The long exhale invites the nervous system into relaxation. Perhaps repeat that just twice more. In for 4, hold, and a long exhale, 4, 6. Let us scan the body as the breath simply becomes natural. The normal rhythm of your breath as it is. As we turn our awareness to our feet, inviting relaxation. Let relaxation move like a wave upward in your body. Ankles releasing. Lower legs relaxing. Bring your awareness to your knees, to the back of the knees, inviting a softening, a loosening. Now the upper legs, the back of the thighs, perhaps noticing the connection to the surface on which you're sitting or lying down. Allow relaxation to engulf the pelvis area, supported by the surface, sinking into the surface. The abdomen, the lower back, releasing. The chest, the upper back. Let each in-breath invite even more relaxation. Let each out-breath send relaxation throughout your body and your mind. As you bring awareness to the shoulders and then glide down the shoulders all the way to the fingertips, softening and loosening. The neck, the throat, and opening with relaxation. Face muscles releasing now. Jaws loosening. Perhaps inviting a softening in the lips. Perhaps a gentle opening. As the awareness engulfs the top of the head, the back of the head, perhaps imagine a wave of relaxation from the top of your head like a soft blanket, covering you all the way to your feet, your toes. Safe here in this time, in this moment, as you take time for reflection, in relaxation. Perhaps together we bring to mind a difficulty, a challenge in our life, something that we know produces a response in our nervous system. Perhaps it causes us to want to flee, to avoid, to turn away. It's too much. Perhaps it causes frustration and irritability, anger, a desire for confrontation. And perhaps we find ourselves incapable of doing anything, freezing, not knowing what to do, how to move forward, what may be the right thing for us. Bring to mind something that is causing you fear and anxiety when you contemplate it. Perhaps it's already present, or perhaps it's something that requires an effort going forward. Regardless of what it is, we begin this practice with an awareness, a recognition of fear in all of its forms. Whether we turn away, whether we confront, whether we freeze. All of these responses hinder our growth. You may notice what it feels like in the body when you think of it. The body is always the first responder. And we can learn so much from turning towards the body. So take a moment and notice what comes up for you in your experience, in your life. As you notice fear, perhaps the next step, as you name it as fear, is making fear your friend. Allowing the deep understanding that fear exists to protect us. That without fear, truly we cannot move around safely in the world. Simple things. Not putting your hand in the fire. When you acknowledge fear as a friend, as a companion, as simply part of our human experience, already a shift begins. Instead of being frustrated with yourself about being fearful, you simply notice. You notice the body, the mind. Remind yourself of the importance of fear, and then choose a mindful response to your own fear. What is a mindful response to fear? First and foremost, it's not making it bigger than it should be. Not creating an elaborate story to feed your own fear. Simply acknowledging fear as a companion, and as if you're speaking to a good friend that perhaps tends to over dramatize things. You speak to your fear. Perhaps you say, I understand why you are here, but let's keep it real. Let's find wisdom in the situation and allow it to be closer and closer to reality. So often we fear what hasn't happened. There is value to predicting danger and risk. There is even more value to mindfully managing what comes up in the mind and kindly return the inner conversation to what is real, what is known. As you expand this practice, first the awareness of fear in the body, in the mind, then befriending your own fear and choosing a mindful response to your fear. As you notice your tendencies, aware of that as well. Are you running away? Are you engaging from a place of anger? Are you paralyzed? What is taking place in your body, mind, spirit is part of your mindfulness practice. And then be vulnerable. Allow yourself and others the conversation that brings to the surface your feelings, your sensations. Choose who you speak to well. Be mindful of the relationships you are cultivating. With whom do you share? Perhaps you have a friend, a family member, a partner that you can trust to be honest and caring. as you allow vulnerability in your day-to-day dealing with this friendship with fear. You acknowledge your humanity. You acknowledge your heart. What comes next? Perhaps you're already noticing a shift from the story you've been telling yourself. Perhaps the story has changed, adjusted. Perhaps fear became a more manageable companion. And then finding autonomy by taking wise action. Can you know for certain the outcome of your actions? No. And yet, as you take wise action, you are finding that fear is taking a step back. Perhaps even shrinking in size. As you take action from a place of mindfulness, of vulnerability, of wisdom, embracing change becomes a possibility. Take a moment and bring a scenario, perhaps the one we started with, where you're challenged and fearful. As you process it through these steps of recognizing it, making fear your friend, understanding its role, and then embracing courage as a mindful response to your own fear. Noticing how your nervous system is responding, allowing vulnerability, and then choosing action, wise action. What would you choose in your circumstances? An action can be simply inviting a different story, a different state of mind. An action can be the choice of doing nothing and inviting more clarity, more reflection, perhaps more conversation. What would support and nourish you as you move towards change and transformation. And I invite you now to expand this sense of courage and take it forward into doing things for others in ways that perhaps you have not perceived possible. Standing up for others with courage, speaking up, being mindful of what may be needed in your community, in your family, for your friends. Having the courage to recognize your own capabilities and providing the gift of your courage, of your capabilities to others. Can you step outside the small self and show up with courage for justice, for love, for compassion? You may find that as you find the courage to do for others, your courage within grows stronger and stronger. Take a moment and reflect. Another deep breath in. 4 in, 4 out. Slow and steady. Soon the bell will sound, indicating the completion of today's practice. I invite you to be kind to yourselves, to recognize fear as a companion, as a friend, to embrace courage as a mindful response to your own fear, to notice how your system is responding. Be vulnerable and find within you courage as you embrace change and bring transformation into your life. And until we meet again, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day or night. Goodbye.